So yesterday, the news came out that Ace Frehley passed away. And I thought it'd be interesting as we make some videos over the next week or so about Ace Frehley and about Kiss, that we remember that Ace Frehley was possibly living on borrowed time since 1976. And if you don't know the story, back in 1976, they were playing a concert in Lakeland, Florida, and Ace was electrocuted. And anyway, just this pretty dramatic thing. And what I did is I went back and I found a couple of newspaper articles that actually tell the story of what happened to Ace at that concert. I think it'd be interesting to just go back and read what was said about this and think about the fact that he had this near-death experience almost 50 years ago. Hey, and real quick, if you like the stuff that we do here, we would really appreciate it if right now you would go down and click that subscribe button and also click the like button for this video. So here we go. So in this one, this is the Lexington Herald, January 13th, 1977. So the actual event happened on December 12th of 1976, which was 1 month after Rock and Roll Over came out. So they were touring on Rock and Roll Over. And so this was originally written in Rolling Stone. So anyway, check this out. Ace Frehley of Kiss was nearly electrocuted at the Lakeland, Florida Civic Center when one of the lights on the railing of the stage set shorted out. The band opened the concert with their traditional Detroit Rock City while standing on top of their ruined city scenery. When Frehley touched the railing to help himself come down, he completed an electrical circuit with his guitar and was unable to move. He finally fell several feet to the stage floor, but was miraculously unhurt. He went to the dressing room for about 10 minutes and returned to a standing ovation as the crowd chanted his name. Now, those of you that are professional musicians may have experienced something like this before. I actually had something like this, variations of this that I was a part of when I was a professional musician many, many years ago. One of them that some of you would have experienced is if your amp is not grounded correctly, you can actually be touching the strings on your guitar, go up and touch your mouth to a microphone, and it'll actually, I remember the first time it happened to me, I'm playing and I go up to start singing and it just shoots you back. It's crazy. But you have to go back to your amp and then flip it to the other ground, and then it goes away. But you can actually complete circuits. I had another situation in a studio where it was our guitarist for the other guitarist in our band, and he was holding his guitar, which we had plugged into a Leslie speaker. And then he had his headphones on through a little headphone amp that was on top of a little microphone stand. He reached over and grabbed the stand, and that was it. And he couldn't move. And because he completed this circuit and he was frozen. And Ace is going to talk about that here in just a second. And luckily our producer was right there, and he actually kicked him so he'd fall off the chair and the circuit would be broken. But that stuff really can kill you. And so Ace had this experience where he was coming down those stairs, he grabbed it and he got locked onto it. And if he hadn't have fallen, it really could have killed him back in 1976. So here we go. So let's see here. Here we go. And Ace says, "If I hadn't been able to let go, I would have died," said Frehley. "My life passed in front of my eyes." A few days later, Kiss flew to New York, where they purchased $25,000 in radio microphones, making their guitars shockproof. And this is the part that is really interesting about it, which means that when he was coming down those stairs with his guitar had to be plugged in through a wire. They were not using wireless. That's what they mean by radio. They were not using wireless units. And one of the things that I learned, after having been shocked a couple of times with a microphone, the way I just explained, is you just get a wireless unit. And then, of course, there is no circuit to be completed, and then you never have that kind of issue. Okay, there's one other article where they talk about this, and this one actually adds a little twist to it. So this is from the La Crosse Tribune, January 7th, 1977. Again, about a month after the incident. Kiss almost kissed member Ace Frehley goodbye a couple of weeks ago when the band played the Lakeland Civic Center in Florida. While striking up the intro to Detroit Rock City, one of the high voltage lamps blew out and live wired the railing. As Ace climbed down from the amp bank, he grabbed the electric structure with his right hand, thus short-circuiting himself since his guitar was still affixed. Somehow he managed Somehow he managed to disengage his hold and collapsed on stage. Rushing to the scene, Kiss manager Frankie administered oxygen and announced to the audience that the show obviously couldn't continue. But much to everyone's surprise, Ace returned on stage after a 10-minute recovery and insisted the show must go on. 2 days later, the group purchased a set of wireless microphones to prevent any future frying catastrophes on set. And again, just having something wireless, either from the microphone or from the guitar, it keeps it so that you can't complete that circuit. And then I've heard other stories where he said that his hand was actually numb. That's why it took him about 10 minutes to come back out on stage, because his hands were numb and he couldn't even feel them. So then the little twist after all this happened is, as they were recording the next album, Ace Frehley wrote a song called Shock Me. So this album then came out the following summer in June 30th of 1977. So this is about 6 months after the event. And if you look here on the back, there is this song called Shock Me. Now, this was not the first song that Ace Frehley wrote, because he actually wrote several songs, but this is the first time that Ace ever sang on an album. Which is kind of an interesting thing when you put this in perspective, that he was always a little bit intimidated or wasn't really secure with his singing voice, so he just never sang. Even though he wrote some songs, all those albums, he just never sang any of his stuff. And then he gets electrocuted, and then he sings on an album, which is kind of an interesting thing, that somehow he got short-circuited, and then now he writes a song, sings for the first time on an album. Next thing you know, of course, they put out the solo albums, and he sings on that thing, this whole album. And then Dynasty comes out after that, and he sings 3 songs on that album. So it's almost as if going through that near-death experience, getting electrocuted, flipped a circuit, and then all of a sudden he had that confidence to write and sing a song, which, by the way, is one of the coolest Kiss songs, the song Shock Me. The first time I ever heard it was on the album Alive 2, and I just absolutely fell in love with that song. And then I heard it later when I got this album at a later date, and you just realize this is one of Kiss's coolest songs. Anyway, and then it's Ace's first time singing. And then when they put out the solo album after that, he sang the song New York Groove, which it really became maybe the only, of all the 4 solo albums, that really became the only hit that came off of any of those albums. And Ace sang it. So it's just, again, it's kind of fascinating that he had this near-death experience, he was electrocuted, and then he came back and started singing. Just kind of an interesting little twist that happened with that. And we ended up with this incredible song called Shock Me, which he says was based on this whole experience that he had of getting shocked or getting electrocuted. So anyway, it's just an interesting thing to think about now that we lost Ace yesterday, to think that he's in some ways possibly been on borrowed time for almost 50 years now. Hey, if you're not following the channel, please follow the channel, like the video, share your comments down below, all your memories and thoughts about Ace at this time. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.